Light Yagami has some new enemies. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today I want to talk about some manga that I read. I am back on that manga grind. And today's manga is from a series that I've been exploring, one that is about killer notebooks and intelligent children. I am referring to Death Note Volume 8 by Tsugumi Ohba, which was published originally around 2006. So I've talked about Tsugumi Ohba on this channel before, so I don't need to go into that great of detail, but he is a manga writer. That is a pseudonym that he's using, and he's written a couple of other series as well, but Death Note is the series that really took off. And I've been saying that Ohba is a great writer for manga and whatnot. I've been very much enjoying this series, and we'll see if that continues with this installment. But without further ado, let's talk about Volume 8. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Volume 8 picks up where Volume 7 left off. Years after Light has killed L, there are some new people who have arrived on the scene, Mello and Nier in particular. Mello ends up kidnapping Sayu, who is Light's sister, and the Kira police squad is sort of on edge about that kind of thing. The Mello had previously kidnapped the main sort of police chief in Tokyo, and Light ended up like killing them to cover his tracks, and then he put the suspicion on the regular police because it kind of there is a potential for him for people to find out that he's Kira because Light is in fact Kira. We find out that Nier is looking for Mello. Doesn't exactly know where Mello is. They were both trained to be proteges for L, but Mello kind of went rogue. Basically Mello contacts Detective Yagami and says that if he wants to see his daughter alive, he'll trade the notebook for Sayu, which they don't have a choice, they have to do. He gets on a flight to LA where Mello wants to meet. Somebody hijacks the flight in order to take him to another location where they can do the exchange and prevent anyone from following them. And he ends up going into like an underground bunker, trades the notebook for his daughter, and then they're free to go. Light is talking with Nier at this time just to get updates on what's happening. Nier doesn't really trust Light because L died, for one, but also Light's been serving as L this whole time, the second L, and hasn't gotten any closer to finding Kira in the years, so something has to be going on there. But also Nier chastises Light for having his team just give away the notebook because of the danger that could bring. But they think they're going to be able to track the people who who have stolen the notebook, but as it turns out, the Mello's team attaches it to a rocket, which sinks into Hudson Bay, they're able to recover it from there. So one notebook is out of his possession, but he still seemingly has two now, based on all the tricks that he engaged in. But we find out that one of the notebooks, the one that Mello has, actually belongs to Ryuk, or belongs to another Shinigami named Sido, who Ryuk stole the book from because he found it in the Shinigami realm. And now Sido wants it back, or else he will die for not having written any names in the Death Note. Ryuk says he doesn't really have it, but says that if he sticks around, he might be able to find it from Light or someone else. But Ryuk doesn't want Light to know about Sido because this is a weird situation for him, and it might get him in trouble with Light. After this entire failure, Light's father wants to resign. Light tries to persuade him not to do that because that could get him in trouble or something like that, or it could lead back to Light in some way. And then Light is talking to Nier about all of this, and in the background we hear that Nier's agents that he's using, a part of a special force, end up getting killed by the Notebook because Mello had a spy in Nier's organization. And then later Light learns about the orphanage where Nier and Mello are raised, and he plans on killing Nier because Nier is gonna start suspecting something about Light being Kira, much like Elle did pretty soon. Meanwhile, Mello calls the president and forces him to help her, otherwise she threatens to kill him and kill his associates and just make him one of the worst presidents ever. And so the president senses that he could maybe contact Elle in Japan, and Light tries to make a deal with the president that the president offers him some men to take down Mello. He'll make sure that the president doesn't die, and gets credit for the attack in the process, and eventually, with the help of Misa's Shinigami eyes, they manage to find out one of the people who has the Death Note, because they don't have a date attached to their death, which is what happens if you have the Death Note. So they manage to find a hideout, and come up with a fake reason for having found it. And then the president sends an assassination force to target Mello. But at this point, the assassination force is targeted by an invisible person, and it turns out that Sado had used Light to find out who had the Death Note, and then track that person down and made a deal with them to give them the Shinigami eyes and work alongside them in the hopes that they would get the Death Note back and possibly not die for not having written things down. And Mello is beginning to learn more things about the Death Note because of Sado in the process. Because of all of this, the assassination force that is targeting Mello largely ends up dead, and the mission is an overall failure. Light is very angry, realizes that he's constantly getting outsmarted here, and he decides to do one of the few things he knows that he can do that'll stop people from sort of figuring out more about him, and that's he asks Misa to marry him. She's very happy, but he's really only doing it because if someone with the Shinigami eyes were to see Misa on TV, they'd realize she doesn't have a date of death, and that she's likely to be one of the people with the Death Note, which again would be traced back to him. So he's very worried about this moment. And as the story comes to a close, Mello tries to call the president again, but we see that he is face down on his desk, potentially dead. And Mello is saying that, she would never harm the president, or they would never harm the president. Mello is kind of presenting like a woman, but is a boy. I don't really know what's going on there. It's really hard, but pronouns and such, they refer to Mello as a he. That's important to note. But it's kind of suggested that Light might have killed the American president, which is pretty interesting. I have a lot to say about that, and that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about with Volume 8 of Death Note. One of the things that I think Ohba is talking about is the dangers of complacency. Light believes he's won already. After all, he killed Elle, so he's assuming no problems are going to rise. He's not accounting for anything. He's gotten overconfident in what he's doing. And again, like many people view Kira as a god, so of course that would go to anybody's head if they were the one acting as Kira. But as we find out, his enemies are everywhere. There's Nier, who is kind of an associate, but is definitely going to be a threat in the future. There's Mello, who's kind of outsmarting Light in every possible way. There's Sado, who wants his Death Note back. And there's just a lot of people who are gunning for Kira, and therefore gunning for Light. And he did not account for any of that, did not plan for any of that, and now it's coming back to bite him in the butt. And what's more is he's also taking Misa for granted. He's only keeping her around as like a human shield. He's using her for her Shinigami eyes, and we saw in the past that he's kind of forced her to sort of give more of her life in order to use the Shinigami eyes. I don't think he really cares about her. He's just using her because she loves him. She's a true believer in the Kira cause, and so like he's making the most use of that, because I don't think he has a real capacity to love anybody apart from himself. And it's funny because Nier calls him an oaf for the number of mistakes that he's making. Like he's like, you are the second L, but you're not even serving in that capacity. You're being kind of an idiot here. You've had plenty of time to catch Kira, but you've been sitting on your butt, and now Mello is taking advantage of that. It really feels like the walls are closing in again. And he says he's operated like this before, and he's really excited by the game. So maybe like when he's the underdog, that's how he thrives. But this also produces a very big danger that I don't think Light is capable of realizing, because he buys into his own hype, which is never a good thing to do. So, I like how Ohba's getting at complacency and also overconfidence at the same time. We also get to see more of Light's heartless nature in this story. Light operates like he is a god. As I said before, he's overconfident. People are worshiping Kira at this point, and so that's kind of gone to Light. And he's also serving as L, so he's the center of this operation. People turn to L for answers and for help, and he's kind of like a leader in that capacity, and he's kind of steering the investigation, even though he's the person who's doing all the killings. Light operates like a god, and he's kind of the face of everything. So, it's very clear that all he wants in this situation is power. He doesn't really care. He doesn't really care about much else. When his father tries to resign, he's like, "Oh, I don't want my father to resign," not because he loves his father so much, but because he. His father is a shield as well, like in the same way that Misa is a shield. If he's working on the investigation with his father and his father doesn't suspect him, then surely that means that he can't be the actual killer. He can't be Kira or anything like that. Also, at the same time, it does seem like he was briefly planning on killing his father as a possible solution to sort of get over any trouble that this might bring. And so that raises a question: does Light think that family is expendable? It certainly seems to indicate that, given how he briefly considers killing Sayu. And even more so, he views Misa as a tool. He's going to get married to her, but he still only sees her as an object of shielding him, but also as a way to get at others in the world, to kill who he wants to kill. So Misa isn't really an object of love for him, not someone he cares about. It's just a tool. These are the people who are closest to him, and he's just using them to get what he wants out of the world. And then another question that we can ask is, did he kill the president of the United States of America? Which the answer is, we don't know yet. We'll find out in future volumes, I think. But given the suggestion that Mello wasn't going to harm the president, then that would indicate that the only other person who could possibly kill him, it's either Misa or it's Light. And I don't think Misa would really do that. It's not on her mind, really. But Light is definitely capable of doing that. And he would willingly kill anyone who could be traced back to him, covering up any loose ends, especially for this failed mission that he went on to capture Mello in the first place. And if he's willing to kill the president of the United States, like, who isn't Light willing to kill? Who isn't he willing to harm in order to make sure that he doesn't get captured in any way? And again, it just goes to show how heartless he is, how lost Light is. Was there ever really a good Light Yagami, or is this the Light Yagami that always was? Or more so than that, like, is getting power in the way that Light got just what naturally corrupts people? Like, any amount of power will eventually lead you to, doing what Light did to the president here. I personally have hope that it's maybe the latter, where like it's power that's doing this, but it's also very well possible that this is just who Light Yagami is, and he is forsaken. The last thing I'll note is that Ryuk's shenanigans in this volume are kind of funny. He stole a death note from another Shinigami, and when that Shinigami comes looking for it, he's like, yeah, I don't really know what to do here. And he sees that this is creating a bigger problem for Light, and he's just like, well, I don't I don't know what to tell you. This is just what happens. It does kind of go back to his original purpose for coming to Earth, which is to be entertained by the humans and cause shenanigans. So I think Ohba is doing a really good job of like incorporating that humor into the story. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Death Note Volume 8 by Tsugumi Ohba. A pretty solid entry, although I am kind of losing interest overall. Like, my main focus was the rivalry between L and Light, and I don't feel the same way about L and Mello or L and Nier. Nier is interesting, but I feel like he's just a duplicate of L. Pretty interesting kind of story, but I do hope it kind of shifts and we get a different sort of dynamic between Light and Nier that isn't just a duplicate of the previous relationship. I need Tsugumi Ohba to kind of shake it up to make it seem more lively, because otherwise this is just kind of the same problem that Light was dealing with before. And we've already seen him overcome it once. It's not hard to believe that he might do it again, so you got to introduce some new elements, I think. But if you have different thoughts or you just want to comment on my review, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this series or this author if they don't already know. But I guess in the meantime, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and hopefully not killing the president related travels. Farewell.